Love is everything.
Hazel, do you sense that more and more people are tense these days?
More and more people are
tense, uptight.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, society, we have become a sort of 24/7 society. And there's so much, like, with the tsunami in Japan, everybody's starting to think, oh, my God, 2012, it's all going to come to an end or whatever. It is not. Yes, there is a huge tenseness, but the more we can find peace within ourselves, the more people that can meditate, the more people that can chant spiritual practices, be kind to each other, coherence is catching. So the more that we can find peace in ourselves, this peace will spread to others. It'll attach to our country grid, our community grid, our world grid. And then remember, whatever the whole consists of, the collective consciousness, whatever you want to call it, that is what will bounce back to us. So I would say to people, please stop adding fear to the whole that you exist inside of. Find peace. Always begin with the self. And in that way, slowly but surely, we will change and we will become less tense and less fearful.
Do we all need a near-death experience like you did in order to
Absolutely
see
not.
this?
I wouldn't want anyone to have to go through what I went through. I'm very, very lucky, actually, to have survived the experience. I would far more encourage people to grow in coherence or to grow spiritually slowly and in a controlled way. And if people choose to meditate in groups, this is even better because it amplifies the effect. So I would just say I'm not trying to impose thoughts or beliefs or a dogma onto anyone. We've got enough people doing that. I always say to people, you have to find your own truth. But as you awaken this thalamus within the center of your brain and you start to become more psychic, more intuitive, you learn to trust your gut instinct more. You learn to be more discerning. And when you're truly online to the universal field of intelligence that does underlie all of life, then you are far more likely to be in the right place at the right time. You don't become so stressed. You don't sweat the small stuff anymore. And therefore, your life begins to flow more and more coincidences, more synchronicities come into your life. So I would say as much as you can. I mean, it's almost impossible in these days to let fear go all the time. Right. But the more you can be non-judgmental and stay in what I call neutral and just observe the stuff that's going on, but not add fear to the whole, the sooner our lives, all of our lives, can improve. Because 2012 is about mind, body, and spirit becoming as one.
Let's go to Kansas City, Missouri. Thomas is with us. Go ahead, Thomas.
Good evening. How are you folks doing tonight?
We are fine. Hazel, are you well?
I'm great, Thomas. Thank you.
You know, I just am amazed with what you've been talking about this evening, Hazel. It's fantastic. I wanted to bring up the idea that I think that consciousness itself is a quantum processes that Dr. Stuart Hameroff has worked with in Phoenix, Arizona, showing quite a bit of evidence about it. And if this is true, which I believe it is, then everything that you've been talking about us being connected is absolutely correct. In the molecule of the neuron are dendrites and within the dendrite are these pools of like oily substance where electrons rest on top and can communicate between themselves. And what's interesting about that is that, you know, electrons are quantum particles. Mm-hmm. That can be both a particle or a wave. So they can be distributed over vast areas. So an electron that I can identify, you know, here on the table in front of me, I could probably also identify the very same electron on the other side of the world as being the same electron, which I think is just amazing. So,
but the thing is, Thomas, you know that Science has verified that all matter, you're absolutely right in what you're saying, all matter, tiny quantum particles which exist in a sea of potentiality, they don't come into being until they are first measured or observed. Now, when you take this concept to its ultimate conclusion, you are looking at life from your perspective now in America. I'm looking out at my beautiful garden here in Henley-on-Thames in England. So I'm not observing what you are observing. So when you take this to its ultimate conclusion, scientists now believe that something they theorize that something, be it a parallel computer or whatever it is simultaneously observing everything all the time. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier, that in the simplest terms, this actually means that we exist inside something, but we're just not quite sure what it is yet. Like the guys at Fermilab, a huge government-funded research facility that have places all over the world, they have now found pixelation at the outer reaches of our universe. So they are beginning to wonder if we are like a holographic reality that's being pulsed from the outer reaches of our universe. But when I asked Bill Tiller, I said, Bill, I'm not a hologram. I said, if I kick a table, it really hurts. And he said, the current physics makes us real. Yes, our world is real. And I thought, well, thank God for that, because I really don't feel like a hologram. But the point is that the way technology is evolving, it really won't be very long. We can make holograms of light, but the technology is advancing that very shortly we will be able to make holograms of substance. And that really blew my mind.
If somebody is not aware, they're not in tune with any of this, how do they get that way, Hazel? What do they have to do?
Well, I mean, for me, it was going across the garden all those years ago when my next-door neighbor, her husband died. I went across the garden to say hi to her, and I said I was very sorry her husband had died. And she wasn't crying, which really shocked me. And she said, oh, I can speak to my husband anytime I like. And I thought, oh, my God, this woman needs a psychiatrist and some Valium. And she gave me a book. It was a book of channeling. And I stayed up all night. It was like a light went on in my head. So I think that if people, I mean, most people, as we've agreed, are not aware of any of this stuff. But I think that gradually and slowly, spiritual books will become bestsellers. We had The Secret. You've got people like Deepak Chopra who've sold millions and millions and millions of books. There's plenty of medical research to show that, say, regular meditation is not woo-woo. It balances hormones. It enables you to cope with stress far better. It helps you to sleep better. People who meditate are younger, physically, mentally. And so it's just a question of people becoming more aware of their physical bodies, looking after their bodies, and just becoming more interested in what's out there. And I think people with totally closed minds, real hard fundamentalists, then I don't think maybe we're ever, you can only do what you can do. And so we're all links in a chain, and we can all do what we can, where and when we can, even if it's only making a neighbor a cup of tea today and smiling at someone and telling them that you love them. All those small acts of kindness all add to the positivity of the whole.
Let's go to Victoria, Virginia. We've got Kevin. He's been waiting. Hi, Kevin.
All right, how y'all doing tonight?
Oh, well, thank you.
All right. I had an experience about 12 years ago where I was laying in the bed, and I had I was in deep sleep, and I had a voltage go through my head, and it woke me dead up out my sleep, and I sat up in the bed. So I tried to go back to sleep. The same thing happened again. Okay. Between the two shocks, I had a dream to where I was in a future world, and this is going to sound crazy. I was in a future world. There were giant robots It was me and this kid, and we were hiding, and these giant robots were looking for us. And right before he pulled a piece of metal back to get us, I woke up. Okay. Since then, I went through a many number of dreams, to where I had a dream to where in the beginning I seen the earth, I seen a man of fire, red fire, a man of blue fire. They were holding hands and they were going around the earth. And then I seen other things like wars going on. And then in the third section, we were all at the supper table of Christ eating dinner.
Huh.
I know that sounds weird, but that's the way it happened.
Interesting dream indeed. Did you look at dreams at all, Hazel?
Well, I've spoken to Professor Travis about dreams, and he says that at night, when we are dreaming, the ancient parts of our brain, the reptilian part of our brain, becomes more active. And obviously dreams can be triggered by a whole load of factors, such as what's going on in your life, your subconscious, and so on. It's a way of us dealing with our emotions. So sometimes our dreams don't make any sense. But if you recall, earlier on, I talked about that in between waking and sleeping and dreaming, our consciousness passes through this underlying field of intelligence where we can have access to all knowledge. We can therefore see potential futures because they are only potential futures. And we can see and experience all kinds of other realities. And so people sometimes think they're dreaming when they have these experiences, but in fact, they are accessing this underlying field of intelligence. But the trouble is when you wake up, it's discerning what was real and what wasn't.
All right. Well, you stay with us, Hazel. We're going to come back in just a moment and take final phone calls. Hazel's website, what's her name? HazelCourteney.com, linked up for you at coasttocoastam.com. Her latest work is called Countdown to Coherence. And we'll be back in a moment on Coast to Coast AM with your final calls before open lines after that. Time for our traditional shout-out. Those of you listening to your favorite radio stations across North America, hello to you. Coast Insiders listening worldwide, hello to all of you. And XM Satellite Channel 165. And how about the various chat room and groups? The Coast to Coast Elite folks, hello there. Imaginative Worlds, Into Infinity, National Radio Club, Sorcery IRC, the MySpace groups, Facebook, Twitter groups, Yahoo Chat, Northern Kentucky Paranormal Group. How about above topsecret.com, SoCal UFO Meetup Group, Hollywood Ghost Hunters, and our buddy in St. Louis, Greg the Cook. Stay out of the rain. And I'll be back in a moment with final calls with Hazel Courteney before open lines next hour on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast.